You know security is hard, so let's assume we're probably gonna get pwned by noon. But if we all start to get the basics right, we might not fully get pwned until tonight.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 7-Minute Security Podcast / live stream. My name is Brian Johnson. I'm your friend and your host, and I feel like I'm kind of getting a hang of this live stream thing. Like, it hasn't gone catastrophically yet, but we're gonna test what I just said in today's episode. We're gonna be talking about how to build a vulnerable pen test lab, and I have what I hope will be a fun, action-packed digital adventure for us. I've because we're a very professional production here at 7MS HQ, I've prepared an outline mostly to keep me on track and from going too far into tangent town. But I'm going to try to just get right into it, because what is always the case is that I set out an outline and I go, oh, that's like 3 things. That'll take like 13 minutes. And then I'm just pushing it and racing to the end of the hour. And I don't want to do that. So we're going to really quickly, very shortly here, we're going to jump into spinning up a domain controller and install Active Directory, get it set up so that we can start baking in the things that we so often find vulnerable in our pen testing adventures. I'm going to show you, actually, after this outline slide, I'm going to show you a couple awesome links that my friends in Slack and colleagues have sent. If you want a bit more of a straightforward, push some buttons, have a lab built, using the magic of automation tools and virtualization infrastructure and those sorts of things, because a lot of people, when they're practicing pen testing, they may just want to get, have the workstations, have the servers kind of stood up for you, and then you can spend most of your time banging away at that stuff. What I said on last week's live stream is that this is just my personal preference, because I did a lot of help desk and sysadmin and network admin work for years, and now I don't operate Active Directory on a day-to-day basis, so I definitely feel rusty. But I just personally like to build the sausage myself. I don't think that works. But do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to kind of show you the more manual way of, downloading Windows ISO, spinning up a kind of vanilla Windows Server instance, and then we're going to install the domain controller, etc., with PowerShell. So that part is going to go fast. I'm not going to go like super slow through, here's how you open your Chrome browser, and then you go to www.microsoft.com. It's not going to be that, but just want to give you enough so you can go, oh, cool. If I've got, some virtualization software, I can stand up this server, and then using the information from today, you can kind of build this yourself. And then I always feel like, once I do it that way, I get to play so much with PowerShell and the GUI tools that I feel like my AD skills aren't as rusty, because, when we're talking to a customer about, hey, you've got this vulnerable group policy object, I can kind of visualize, oh, here's the tools, here's kind of where you need to look for that problem, and here's the settings you need to change to make things more secure. So we'll be doing that. Once the kind of core Active Directory domain is stood up, we're gonna intentionally tinker with a password policy to make it really bad. Probably laughably bad to many people that will see this, but as I've shared before, I don't like to assume anything when I step into an internal network to test. And as far as password policies, I mean, I feel like I've seen extremes. I've seen, I think, 4-character password policies with no complexity and pretty much no account lockout controls. So you could essentially brute force, just set up a tool to just hammer through the various password variations and probably get yourself a hook into many accounts to, 26 characters with complexity, with something like safepass.me, or what's the other one that I see a lot? Nfront. I think it's just I think it's just N like Nancy front that plugs in. And as you pick a password and submit it, it goes through all sorts of checks and goes like, okay, is it long enough? Is it strong enough? Does it have some sort of easy English word in the middle? Let's check it against millions and billions of known bad passwords. And, it goes through like 11 jillion security checks before it lets you pick that as your Active Directory password. But again, we are wanting to build an environment that, doesn't have the best security. So we're going to make a pretty poor default domain password policy requirements. And then about that time, maybe even earlier than this, we'll take our commercial break, because I know one of the steps as we build our domain controller, there's one that just requires a lot of sitting and waiting. So I'll probably just roll the commercial break early, just so that, I don't feel like I have to either Google dad jokes or knock jokes, and we just stay on task. And then we're gonna probably conclude with baking in this oldie but a goodie vulnerability. We've talked about it a number of times on our Tales of Pentest Pwnage, but we've talked about it now for the first time, I think, as part of a live stream. You'll see it. This old vulnerability that, if it exists in your environment, may give an attacker an easy win, as far as they may quickly be able to have local admin access across the entire enterprise, and you could get owned in about 10 seconds or 7, probably, right? And then if there is time, I have one other little sneak peek thing I'd like to show you. And I know this is falling into the category of sleazy sales guy, and I never want to do that. But for our Light Pentest LITE training, that stands for Live Interactive Training Experience, where it's a 3-day training environment where we get on a Zoom together, and I give you access to your own student VM, and we actually do a lot of the stuff I'm going to show you today, but live, against a real AD environment. I've been working with a company to create a cool, hip, flashy, sexy advertisement video that'll be up on YouTube. And they just sent me the final cut this morning. So if there's time, and if you want to see it and maybe hang around 3 minutes at the end, I'll give you a sneak peek at that. So, okay, well, let's do it. Oh, speaking of sleazy sales guy, I'll just go real quick. We have an ebook. We talked about it last week extensively. It's in version 1.1. It's $7.77. And it walks through step by step with scripts and screenshots and stuff. A lot of, again, what we're talking about today. Here's how we get into an Active Directory environment. Here's how we enumerate it. Here's how we punch it in the face and maybe get some pwnage. And then you're on this, so I'm kind of preaching to the choir. But we do this just about every Thursday at 1 Central. Something security related. You can get the full upcoming and past live streams at 7minsec.com/live. I don't have the next week's session up yet. I'm hoping to get my friends at Cyberspatial/Teleseer. Teleseer, I've talked about a couple times on this stream. That's the service where you could, on a pen test, for example, do a packet capture for a while, upload just the capture to Teleseer, and it will break it apart visually and map the environment visually for you, and even identify things like vulnerable hosts that have known CVEs associated with them. If that packet capture happens to contain plain text credentials flying across the wire, it'll parse that out as well. It's really cool, and I'm trying to get those folks lined up to come in and do like a more in-depth tech demo. So maybe that's next week. If not, we'll probably do Build a Vulnerable Lab Part 2. So just to set your expectations accordingly. All right, a couple links worth mentioning. Again, at the top of the broadcast here, I mentioned, if you are like, hey, I don't really want to build my own server install and maintain that and that sort of thing. Here's a couple links folks shared with me. GOAD, Game of Active Directory. And our pal Conundrum mentions there's a caveat. If you aren't running on a beefy Linux host, expect nightmares. But I guess people have had success porting it over to vSphere and having an okay time with it. So there's one for you. Another one shared with me was automatedlab.org to quickly spin up on Hyper-V or Azure, spin up lab and test environments. That might be something cool for you. I've not played with that one, either of these two myself. Another one sent to me that I should try because I've got a beefier Windows host now that has Hyper-V. But right from Microsoft, there's this MS Lab projects that lets you quickly spin up fun stuff in Hyper-V. And I will actually, let me show you this one more link and then I'll paste all the stuff you just saw in the chat. This is one, if we have time, maybe I'll install this or I'll install this in part 2. This Bad Blood project, this is great for if you do just install vanilla Active Directory like we're about to do. You run this one PowerShell script and Bad Blood just crams your directory full of users and groups and OUs and such, and then bakes in a whole bunch of vulnerabilities for you to find. And I believe, maybe I'm confusing this with another tool, but I believe this is kind of it'll create a different environment each time. But even if it doesn't, the feedback I've had from folks is that it's a very cool way to practice your AD pen testing skills. Let me just go to the chat really quick here. I just want to highlight one comment from Eternal Paradox. Just got your OSEP. That is awesome. I my hat bow to you. My hat's off to you. That I know is no small feat, and you're probably sleep deprived. Congratulations. That's awesome. And Quincy mentioned as far as that game of Active Directory running on an Optiplex with 24 gigs. So it sounds like that one is indeed memory heavy. So make sure you've got a generous amount to allocate to that. Okay, and I always have a slide to self show cool lab stuff now. Okay, self, I will. Let me get out of there real quick. Okay, let's get over to our. So here's my just plain old Windows Server 19 install with nothing on it but updates. And if you're looking for this, like if you've got a little ESXi box like on a NUC, like we've shown in our past live streams, you can just go to Windows Server ISO download on Google, and you can even spell download wrong. Isn't that fun? And Google's smart enough to figure out what you're talking about. And if you come to the evaluation center, I wonder if they've changed this. This is a little cleaner than I thought. I can't remember if it was like the Windows 10 ISO or what it was that I had to go to the Internet Archive to find, but it can't really be that easy, can it? Okay, here's our English ISO download, 64-bit edition. I think you have to give up an email address and, oh, no, you don't. Oh, that's nice. That was like 2 clicks. There you go. Download the Server 2019 ISO, boot your virtual machine to it, and just, it's pretty much just next. That's all I did to get what you're seeing right now. I've RDP'd into my server that, as I said, has updates and nothing on it. Maybe I will. I mean, I think I've got a generous amount of bandwidth, but just to be safe, I'm going to kill that large download. Okay, so here we are in our Windows environment. I think what I'm going to do. Oh, I know, I forgot. Let me paste to you really quick those links to those more automated lab. There is one big that might be ugly. I'm not sure if that came through as like one huge link to you, but I think you can probably see how to. You might have to do a little copy pasty to get that to look a little prettier. Okay, so I have gotten this box up. The only things I've done to it so far, actually, besides the updates, one other thing I did is I gave it a name. Okay, so I came into, if you didn't see that, I came into Windows Explorer. I right-clicked this PC. I hit Properties, and then down here, the computer name right now is Bryfly DC01. But if it's just out of the box, it'll have some random name. So I can't remember because it's been a while since I've been a system admin. But I'm pretty sure if you name the computer one thing and then install Active Directory and try to rename later, I think you're asking for pain. And in a lab environment, you probably don't care. But I think a best practice I learned a long time ago as a sysadmin is just name things the first time, and also go to the network control panel. Also give your domain controller a static IP. I think I've had some nightmares in the past where IPs changed and stuff couldn't talk to each other. I am just so I'm recognizing that I am not doing as I say. I'm set to DHCP here, but in my network equipment, I've got a DHCP reservation for this box, so the IP never changes. But if you leave it like I have it now, and walk through the install wizards for Active Directory, it's going to kick and scream a little bit and say, the sky is falling. Please, for the love of Pete, put a static on this thing. But that's it so far. Gave it a name, gave it an IP that's going to stick. And now we're going to install the actual Active Directory services. And this is something too, you can certainly go to our friend Server Manager, which is pretty insistent, I think, still on like popping up in your face when you first log into Windows anyway. But you can come into this and you could follow add roles and features. And you could kind of step through, yeah, let's go next. And yes, this is the system I want to install on. And I'm going to install Active Directory domain services. It's going to give you a bunch of extra stuff that needs to come along as part of that install. And you can walk through it that way. That's fine. But I definitely am not an automation guru, but I am a fan of, if it can be done in a couple commands in PowerShell, let's go that way instead. So I'm just going to cancel out of this. I'm going to minimize this, and let me get a command prompt open. And I've got this stupid Mac Magic Mouse, which if there's a way to do the zoomies into command prompt so that the font's bigger, if there's a way to do it with Magic Mouse, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to computer. So we'll do it that way. Oh, and maybe I'll do, one of you, I think, showed me something I should have adjusted a long time ago. Right click command prompt, do defaults. And then I think now if I do like 28 here for font size, I believe every new command prompt I open will have the big font size. Figured it out.
Giggity.
Yeah. Or more like,
Giggity.
oh, no. More like,
Giggity, 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 giggity. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bing, bang. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bing, bang.
I don't even know if that came through or not. I don't know if I have the soundboard hooked up right, but that gave me the giggities when I figure out simple stuff that other people have figured out a long time ago. Yeah, dude. And dudettes. Okay, what was I even doing now? Getting a command prompt open. That's half the battle sometimes, right? And then what do you want to do? Oh, you want to install the command to install Active Directory domain services. So let's open up PowerShell. Let us do add Windows feature. Notice tab completion. That's your friend here. AD, except I don't think this next part is tab friendly, because otherwise it would have to somehow know all the features you could add. But let's go AD domain services. Enter. And now wait. Okay, thank you for, yeah. Thank you. Nate says that I'm a code noob, and that's true. And it's good to know the giggity worked. I mean, this is where the soundboard comes in handy, because it's such a nice, time filler / killer. Except I haven't loaded anything new, except I don't know if I ever have told you that when I get into a command prompt, I feel like
it's turbo time.
I do. Okay, so that one pretty quick. And now, just so you'll see, we've kind of done in command line what you could do in the GUI. I'm going to come over here into Server Manager again. I'm just going to refresh. And we'll see in a moment or two. Look at this, new role on the left side. Here's our Active Directory services. And now notice it's complaining about, hey, there's a little bit more configuration to do to actually get this thing rocking. And again, you could simply click more, and you could start to go through the little wizard here of filling out the necessary information. So you're going to need to pick like your domain name, test.local, clown.fart, whatever, leave it up to your imagination. And you got to step through, yes, I want to install a DNS. Yes, I want to install this, that, and the other. But again, I prefer, if we can, let's do it in a couple commands. So I'm going to kill this and move this out of the way. Let's do this command line style. When you step through the Active Directory configuration, it will ask you for a restore password to use in case of emergency. So, and please, smart people who see this, please be gentle when I show you what I'm about to show you, because I realize it's probably bad and hacky and not the right way, but it also works. And sometimes that's all I care about. I'm going to set a variable here called super secure pass. And then I'm going to convert the following string. And the string will be the restore password I want to use. So please, for the God of skinny punks, let me restore LOL. So it's going to create this password, store it as a variable. All right. And yes, we are going to go ahead and store it as plain text. We're going to force to be okay with that. Okay. And then that now will be used in this next command. That's a one-liner to install the forest, set up DNS, and reference that restore password. So I'm going to install ADDS, ADS forest? Nope, ADD. There we go. Install the forest. Here's where you give it that domain name. So I'm going to use fly.us. And you're like, oh no, Brian, is that just an alternate name for your stupid indoor skydiving YouTube channel? If that's the question you asked, then the answer is yes. Good call, Mom. Okay, but I'm going to use it as an internal domain. So bryfly.us. Yes, we want to install DNS. And the net BIOS name is like the short name, so you're going to log in as, domain / administrator or whatever. I'm going to call this Bryfly US. Okay. And then remember, we need to have that safe mode administrator password. I'm just going to reference it by doing that. That makes sense, right? We set the variable up here. We're going to reference it here. Okay. And yeah, and I think if I just hit enter, it's going to say like, oh my gosh, Brian, you're the worst at doing stuff and you don't know how to do things securely. But I'm going to add the force flag to say I'm fine with my pause and just do what I ask you to do, computer. Thank you. If everything's rocking, then we're rolling. Yes. Yes, figured it out. Stuff's working. Okay. Let me see here. So I think this is going to take a couple of minutes. I think what I'll do in order to I'll do two things. First of all, let's check in with my backyard weather cam to see if it's still snowing. How's it looking back there, camera 2? Still snowing. Okay, good. So we did a quick weather check. Kind of feels like a TV thing sometimes. Like I wish I could throw to commercial. But you know what I will do? I will throw to, let's see. Maybe I will throw to sponsored commercial. And then by that time, this install and reboot will hopefully be done. So please check this out. This is our sponsored ad today is from our friends at Blumira. And I made a video to go along with the narration. And you'll see just how bad my PowerPoint and graphics skills are. But check it out, and we'll be right back. Today's episode of the 7-Minute Security Podcast is brought to us by our friends over at Blumira. And boy, do we love Blumira. It wasn't too long ago we started a podcast series called Desperately Seeking a Super SIM for SMBs. Because everybody needs to be watching their network and Active Directory and knowing and getting alerting when things go bump in the night. And from that series, someone from Blumira reached out and said, well, we're an awesome SIM and we love SMBs. Have you ever heard of us? You want to give us a try? Want to give us a spin? And I said, yes, I want to literally give you a spin in my Light Pentest LITE training environment, where all we do, me and the students, all we do every day, all day is beat the heck out of a network and punch Active Directory in the face over and over again. And Blumira was like, yeah, fine, spin up a trial. Let's see how it goes. And oh my gosh, we got all sorts of helpful alerts on things that we actually cared about happening in the environment. Not too many. We weren't getting alert fatigue. We were getting just the right amount of alerts. And maybe the best thing out of that experience was that I got so excited about the alerts. I went to Blumira and I said, oh, it would be cool if you could alert on a couple of other things like AS rep roasting, and maybe if someone flipped the wdigest flag on an endpoint so that attackers were able to scrape creds in clear text out of memory. I mean, that's something that shouldn't be happening on the average business day. So wouldn't it be sweet if you could detect that? And not too long after that conversation, they had built detections for both those things. And that's the kind of relationship you want with your SIEM service provider. You want to be able to go to them with ideas. You want to be able to take results from a pen test and say, hey, our pen testers did these 12 things. You alerted on 4 of them. Why is that? And if they kind of dismiss you or chuckle or say, oh, let us secure explain to you while you're a moron. If they do any of that, you probably want to tuck tail and run. And I would invite you instead to go talk to my friends over at Blumira, who are very SMB friendly. I really like the whole crew over there. You've heard some of their featured interviews on the podcast. I really can't recommend them enough. So go check them out today. Visit blumira.com/7ms to get started. And we're back. And as you can see, we've still got a little bit more to do. So I kind of think in a way it's helpful to see that, just time that this all takes. So right before we came back to live video, the reboot hit. Now that I go to sign in again, it's got a bunch of other prereqs to finish. So I'll tell you what, since I've been through this a couple of times in practice, and this was about another 60 seconds, if you don't mind a tiny bit of shameless self-promotion, I want to show you for the first time the Light Pentest LITE advertising/explaining video, because it's about 2 minutes. And by that time, I think this DC will be back and we can finish up baking in some vulnerabilities. So check it out, and I'll see you in a couple minutes. The best protection your company has against hackers is you. You and your team are the human firewall that protects your organization from attacks, scams, and breaches. If you spend money on one security effort this year, consider investing in your people. At 7 Minute Security, we're excited to offer Light Pentest LITE. That stands for Live Interactive Training Experience. This 3-day remote course is a 100% hands-on, instructor-led program that introduces you to a virtual company we call pwnable. Then you put on your black hat, and together we will scan, attack, and eventually completely compromise pwnable's Active Directory environment. This is not a webinar or a lecture. This is real, hands-to-keyboard experience led by our experts at 7 Minute Security. Whether you're a blue teamer, a developer, or even a hobbyist who wants to build some pen testing chops, this course identifies the vulnerabilities we see over and over on our assessments and gives you scenario-based experience to find them and exploit them. Each day is a 3.5-hour session. On day 1, we give you a tour of Pwnable and work through a bag of tricks that hackers use to find easy wins on your network. We'll explore a nickel tour of Active Directory and why it is so ripe for abuse, curb roasting and AS rep roasting attacks, how to crack password hashes, and how to break through a network's first defenses to become a local system administrator. On day 2, it's time to up the ante. We will learn how to snipe passwords with the MS14025 vulnerability, enumerate Active Directory attack paths, abuse network protocols, and exploit group policy objects that have weak passwords and misconfigurations. On day 3, we'll bring it all home by dumping domain credentials, setting credential traps for unsuspecting users, scraping system passwords, and impersonating members of the domain admins group. Light Pentest LITE is more than instruction. It's also a classroom community. At the end of each session,
You're free to practice what you've learned in the lab and chat with other students about their approaches and backgrounds. Our sandbox approach to security training doesn't require a heavy lift from your on-site IT or security team. Everything's done remotely and at a price that's affordable for small and medium-sized businesses. Want to learn more? Head over to 7minsec.com/training to find out when the next session starts, pricing information, and much more.
Cool. Hey, thanks for letting me show you that, and appreciate the feedback. Yeah, this group did a really nice job, and I think made this look super cool. What's not having a good time right now is logging in here. And if this doesn't wrap up within like the next minute, I'll hop over to another lab environment I have. Question came up though: how do you handle Windows trial license expiring on lab servers? And I'll just pop that up here. On the lab servers, I'm typically doing like a burn and rebuild of lab environments before I run into that. However, there is the command you can run to extend that license, I think 1 or 2 more times. I think you get 90 days out of the well, let's see here. Oh, good. Finally logged in. Wonderful. This expires. Oh, it's valid for 178 days. So in my lab environments, I'm very ADHD about this. So none of my labs live that long, but renew server trial key. There's just a command. Here we go. I'll pop this in the chat. There's a, excuse me. That'll show you. There's just a single command, I think. Oh, slmgr space tac dlv, I guess. Check out that link though. That's one thing that'll let you extend for, I think, at least a couple times. All right, so we're back. We're back in here with a vengeance. Okay, so now, here's one thing that I may have been obvious to other people on this webinar, but I got Active Directory installed, right? So if I go to Server Manager, this time I think it'll be there and say like, yeah, cool, you installed a domain and DNS and all these other things. Still doing it spinny. But one thing I was doing when I was kind of stepping through this myself is I go, okay, let me run dsa.msc to bring up Active Directory users and computers tool, right? Like a core tool to doing stuff in Active Directory. And, maybe if you go through the GUI, there's a couple tick boxes to get that stuff installed. But as you can see, it's not here. Directory users and computers, please, not there. So what I learned and have in just some of my automation scripts is this little command. And let's see if our command box comes up with a nice zoomed in defaults. Oh yeah, that's pretty. Okay, we'll go to PowerShell real quick. And here's a nice one-liner to get those tools that we need. Add Windows feature, and the name of it is RSAT Tech ADDS. This I think will not take 5 minutes or require a reboot. I think this one goes fairly lickety split here. I think on the soundboard side, I have added a snippet of one of my favorite Weird Al songs. You know, that one that is about from one of his last albums that talks about, if that isn't love, I don't know what love is. And kind of the bridge and leading up to the final chorus, he talks about the object of his affection. And he says, you're so beautiful, you make a glorious sunset look like a big fat turd. So I put that on the soundboard. I haven't found a situation where it works yet, but I'm ready with it, and here it is. Look like a big fat turd, yeah. Okay. All right, let's see. Oh, good. There we go. So that went, and now if I search for, there it is. Or if I go dsa.msc, boom. There's our Here's the problem that only happens to me, I think. Look at that. You're live witnesses to this. Look, Windows found it. Clicky, clicky. Brian goes clicky, clicky. Computer no worky, worky. But if I come back here and I type dsa.msc, okay. I know the world has bigger problems than that, but that's just super annoying. Okay, so what I wanted to show you, let's go into group policy management and let's take a look at just out of the box, what is the domain password policy that everybody's going to follow? So I'm just loading, clicking into default domain policy. Let's take a look at settings. And then down here, here's the goods. So if you didn't know this already, Windows out of the box will have people pick a 7-character password. But password must meet complexity requirements. Okay, so you can do PASSWORD 1, maybe, right? And must meet complexity requirements and such. Okay, that's fine. So from a command line, there is a PowerShell module we can do to just directly tweak that a little bit. So here's what I'm going to do. It's a module called set AD default domain password policy. You need to specify the identity, and that's the domain that you set up when we installed Active Directory. So remember, I called mine bryfly.us. And then I'm going to do a lockout threshold of 15. So lockout threshold, that determines the number of failed sign-ins you can hit before a user will be locked out. So I'm making it generous on purpose because when I'm practicing stuff with students or teaching somebody, I want to be able to do password spraying and things that do a lot of login attempts, and I don't want the account to lock out. So remember, just to reiterate, we are intentionally configuring settings that are not ideal. So I'm gonna be generous and say, yeah, you can have the wrong password 15 times before we lock out. And then as far as lockout duration, I'm gonna set that to 3 minutes. So lockout duration, that's how long the account will be locked out. So then that way, if I have students working on an environment when I'm not around, if they just wait a little bit, the accounts become unlocked. I kind of like to give students a feel for, you don't want to come into an environment and just shotgun brute force passwords, right? Because you could lock up accounts, and some environments have it such that if an account locks out, it never unlocks unless a system administrator unlocks it. So you wouldn't want to come into a corporate environment, password spray everybody aggressively, lock out every account in the flippin' enterprise, and then have some poor sysadmin network admin have to spend their time manually unlocking just the accounts they want to be unlocked. Okay, that's lockout duration. Then I'm going to do lockout observation window of 2 minutes. So lockout observation window is the waiting period after which the lockout threshold is reset. And then complexity enabled, I'm going to set that to false. Let's see. What do we say it was by default? We said it was enabled. I'm going to just turn it off. That way people can pick things like the word password. All right. And then some of these other ones we don't really even need, but I'm going to set up a password age of 42 days. And a minimum password age of 1 day. Minimum password length. I told you I've kind of seen a little bit of everything. The default is 7, and that's, it's a good number. But let's just make it 6 so that people could pick PASSWD, or Brian J. And then, again, it doesn't really matter too much, but we'll do password history count of whatever, 27. Okay, it looked like that took, and we can verify that by just going back to default domain policy and refreshing. Yes. Okay. So now, right about EA, we'll see all the stuff that we just put in. 27 passwords remembered, maximum password age 42, minimum password age 1 day. All you need is a 6-character password with no complexity. And then here's those lockout policies. So that's nice. Now you can load up tools like Rubius, other things, right? And really give these accounts a nice pounding without having them lock up on you every 2 seconds. Okay, cool. So that's one of the first things I do. And then, okay, we're doing okay for time. The final thing that I want to show you is here really quick. And oh, whoops. Okay, sorry, Kevin. I have your image on the screen forever. Hopefully, I didn't block out what you were looking at. Okay, I'm going to do. Oh, okay. I know what I'm going to do. Last thing I'm going to do is show you an oldie but a goodie, one of my favorite vulnerabilities to find ever. Don't find it very often, but find it enough that it has become one of my favorites. So if you want to do any Googling on this, it's the MS14-025 vulnerability. Talked about it a lot on the podcast historically. It's fun now to be able to like show you this too behind the scenes. So maybe if it hasn't given you a light bulb moment hearing about it, maybe it will seeing it. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to create a new group policy object, and I'm going to call it global local admin. So put yourself in the shoes of a system admin, network admin type, right? One thing that certainly would be helpful from a convenience standpoint is if you had on every computer in your corporation a local admin that was the same across all machines, right? Because think of, oh man, this machine's got ransomware, it's got malware, it's got whatever. You could tell the user, okay, pull it completely off the network, right? Unplug Ethernet and or disable Wi-Fi, bring it to me, let me do some diagnostics on it. Well, then you as the admin, you can boot that system up and just know, I'm going to log in with my global local admin, called global local admin and whatever password I wanted. Okay, so back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I mean pre this MS14025 vulnerability, you could do something like what I'm about to show you. So I could, as the administrator of bryfly.us, I could go, all right, I'm going to make my life easier. I'm going to create this group policy that pushes out a global local admin to every box in the enterprise. Okay. So I can come down here and do something like this. Right here, local users and groups. Let me blow this up. Let's push out a new user to every workstation. We're going to call it global local admin. Okay, full name is global l.admin. Description, this is a global local admin on all workstations, LOL. And now note right here, password field. Okay, it is great. This is where the peanut butter meets the jelly. I don't know. I don't do good with like things like that. Here's where it's really important. Right now, password, note that this is grayed out. I cannot populate anything in here. Okay. But back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I mean pre this MS14025 bulletin, I could put a password in here. So what I'm going to do for right now, I'm just going to save this because I want to show you what this looks like on the back end. And then we'll talk about where the security problem is. Okay. So what this has done is created an XML file in the group policy file hierarchy that has the information about global local admin. And here's how we can find that. So I'm going to go to global local admin again. Let me do details. And here's this unique ID. Okay. And this helps me find actually where in the file structure this is. So I'm going to go, let's see, it's you always got to Windows and sysvol. Yes, nailed it. Totally figuring it out. Totally should have written it down, but didn't. Windows sysvol domain. Let me bring this up here so we can see it. Let's go to policies. Okay, and then there's the GUID folder for each corresponding policy, right? So the one we want starts with F33. So let's go there. Free. Okay. And then I set up a user GPO property. I'm just following kind of the file hierarchy here. Okay. Groups. And boom, this is the important file, groups.xml. Notice that was just created a couple of minutes ago when I saved that local user, right? So let's pop it open with Notepad so you can see what it looks like. So it's you know, this dirty XML, but there's our user, right? Global local admin. Okay, here's the UID, blah blah blah, and it's got there's its full name. I know that font is kind of small. I can't remember if I can zoom in on this. Oh, I can. Zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. Okay, and then here's the important part to point out. Okay, so there's our description. This is a global local admin, LOL, right? Here's the important part. C password. Okay, so when I was showing you that back in the day, right, you could assign a password to global local admin. What the security problem was is that the password that you assign to global local admin in this case would be stored as an encrypted value here. It would look like blah, 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 blah. It would look like that. Okay. So the big problem is at some point, and I can't remember exactly how this got out, but at some point Microsoft published the decryption key to the C password values. Whoopsie daisy doozles, right? And that key, I'm having a hard time with my mouse, but there it is. Okay. And that decryption key is the same on every Active Directory installation that there is. So if you put your evil hacker hat on, you might go, well, wait a minute, Brian, does that mean if I'm on a pen test and I come across groups.xml files with C password values, does that mean I can quickly decrypt them and figure out their plain text, value? Yeah, you can. Now, so what we're going to do, just to finish things off, we're going to create a password, encrypt it as a C password, and then show how it is vulnerable to a pen tester or hacker, right? So to show you that, there's lots of tools you can use to generate an encrypted C password. I'm going to just show you one real quick that's on Linux. So I'm going to go, I've got a Kali box on the same network. And okay, let me try that again. Very, very complicated password that may or may not be jingle all the way. Just kidding. Okay, G is called G3 something. Hold on. LSG. It is, there we go. GP3 Finder. Whoops. GP3. No. GP3 Finder. Oh, I know. I have it. GP3 Finder. I'll get there. Bear with me. And this is, let me just go to my notes super quick and give that link to you so you've got it. Here, in case you want to, I just found this, excuse me, I just found this really easy to use. Here we go. So once you get that installed, all you need to do then, if you wanted to specify, oh goodness, what happened here? Oh, there it is. Okay. You can do something like this because I think it actually becomes a binary maybe. Yeah. So here's what you can do. You can encrypt or decrypt C password values. Okay. So if I want to do something like this and have my local admin password be indoor skydiving is neat and you should try it. LOL. I don't know why I'm talking like my teenager today, but can you just please go ahead and be okay with it? Hit enter, and then look at this. You'll get the C password value. Okay. And again, if you were to come across a C password value in your travels, then presumably you could do attack D for decrypt. And there you go, GPP Finder. Oh, do I have to do like sudo or something? Oh. So there it is. Okay. See that? So it goes both ways. So hopefully that makes sense. That's the core security issue here. is that the key is known. So when you find it on a pen test, you can quickly find the plain text equivalent. So what I'm going to do, because we made the shell, if you will, of a user called global L admin, I'm just going to paste that indoor skydiving encrypted password there, and I'll hit save. Okay. So now if we were to, for example, use a tool that we've talked about a couple times on, many times on the podcast, but a couple times on the live stream, let's use something like our friend Ping Castle, as if we're coming into this environment in like a fresh pen test. And it's like, all right, just show me where this Active Directory is bleeding at the seams, right? Let's find some easy wins. I'm going to download Ping Castle. And I'll just get that extracted there. And we'll go ahead and run Ping Castle. And like I said, we've covered this a few times, done more of a primer in our Active Directory Pen Testing 101 about Ping Castle and kind of how to use it. But to get started, if you've not seen it before, it's this easy. You just download that zip, you extract it. And I always start with just the general option number 1, which gives you a kind of a health check of the domain. And it gives you a 0 to 100 scale as to how healthy or not the domain is. And if I forget to say it later, let me say it now. The higher the score, the worse shape things are in. So, you know, if you run this and you get 100 out of 100 on your test paper, that's not good. Unfortunately, that's not an A+. All right, let's let it rip. Shouldn't take too long. And then what will happen is inside here, you'll get, let's see, this was just created. You'll get this HTML report as your report card. So let me do this. Let's open this up. HTML. Oh, that's not too bad. We only got a 70 out of 100. That's not terrible. But I already know which category this shows up in, and I think it's anomalies. And let's see. There we go. Look at that. Let's see, can I zoom in a little bit maybe for the people in the back? So this gives me the giggities to see on a pen test, because this could mean insta local admin pretty much everywhere. But number of passwords found in GPO, 1. And we hit that link. And I love that Ping Castle is smart enough not only to find these. There's the GPO name. That's the one that's vulnerable. Here's the username, and here's the decrypted password. So that's pretty cool, right? And I'm sorry, I've been away from chat for a minute here. That's awesome, right? Now, again, if this was a real world environment and I found this, then my next step would be I'd go over to CrackMap exec. I would load up this cred and try to, I would load up all the subnets. I would try to connect to every machine and feed it this username and local account password. And again, it may just be like, wow, I'm local admin everywhere, which isn't, if you're on your way to domain admin, this is a big stepping stone in the right direction, because if you've got local admin on systems, you can set the wdigest flag. You could install keyloggers. You could, do a bunch of other things to start harvesting more creds that are important. And just to finish that thought about the MS 14025, in case the question comes up, this is my theory on why we're still seeing this in the wild, is that, yeah, there's a security bulletin and a quote unquote fix for it. But the problem is what gets fixed is what I was showing you earlier, where if I come in here and I've got a user that I'm making, a global local admin, the fix is that on any new group policy, I cannot populate anything in these password fields. Okay. But if you apply the fix, it doesn't go back in time and fix old vulnerable group policy objects. So a lot of times stuff like this is just sitting in Active Directory environment that's been around forever, and they've had staff turnover and all that kind of stuff, and they just don't know that it's there, which I think is just another one of many reasons that it's a valuable exercise to, to have a pen test and explore some of this stuff. So, all right, that was a lot. We got about 4 minutes. Let me look at the chat and see if there's anything here. Oh gosh, there's some more comments. Okay. Let's see. We talked about someone says happy they found this. So awesome that you did, and thanks for hanging out with us. Q Data says been checking out the Tales of Pentest Ponage. Thank you. Glad you like that. Question came up. Oh gosh, this is maybe a specific technical question, Orson. I don't know that we'll be able to answer that. I don't know that. I'm not sure that has an easy answer, but I'll pop it up here. Anybody know how to fix Ethernet? Doesn't have a valid IP configuration. Sorry, that could be a ton of things. But yeah, that could be a ton of things. If you want to shoot me a note, I could definitely try to remotely give you some ideas, but that could be a bit more in depth of a fix. That's all I've got. I really appreciate you hanging out and going through this. I hope you found it valuable. I'll do a quick weather check in the backyard. Okay. Yep. It's still snowing. But yeah, I'll just hang out like a couple more minutes because I need a drink of water here. And comments, questions, something you've seen here where you're like, oh, here's a better PowerShell way to do that. Well, that's maybe a loaded question because pretty much everything I do, I'm sure there's a better PowerShell way to do it. You're welcome for the walkthrough. This is really fun stuff. And once again, it felt like, this will take 15 minutes to get through, but it does take quite a bit to cover things. So definitely a part 2, maybe even a part 3 coming, because this has been something folks have been asking for, and I love it. So, all right, let me see if there's anything on the soundboard I need to go over with you. I remember I've got. Look like a big fat turd, yeah. And anytime stuff gets screwed up in the lab, I'm always ready with. We'll do it live. And then I had ready one time. I was on a call with somebody. See if I can figure out where it is. I had a Tenacious D thing queued up. Oh, because someone was like, "Oh, yeah, I heard the 7-minute security jingle. That was kind of silly." And then I just played this on cue.
And just remember who wrote that song. Me, baby, me.
And that's Jack Black from Tenacious D. I was like, yes, I've waited for this context moment to come up, and it did. So I was able to deliver him some Jack Black. Question came up. I'm trying to put it up here. I'm trying to build a home lab server for red teaming. And I'm not sure if that question is you want to build a home server to host like red teaming tools on, or use it as a jump off point to attack other things. Or if you want to do kind of what we're doing and build yourself a vulnerable AD and configuration and stuff like that. If you look a little earlier in the chat, there's like a few links for more automated tools you can run that'll like stand up workstations and servers for you. That might be like a quick way to get up and going. Otherwise, if you didn't see all of this episode will walk you through from scratch, getting the Windows Server ISO and, attaching it to like a virtual environment of your choice, and then actually installing Active Directory and baking in some vulnerabilities. So, and if you like that, then stay tuned and we'll do a part 2 in the near future. But we're at the top of the hour. I know a lot of us have to go. So God bless you. Thanks for hanging out, and hope to see you next week. All right. We'll see you.
You've been watching or listening to 7-Minute Security, a weekly podcast focused on pen testing, blue teaming, and building a career in security. For more episodes like this, visit 7ms.us. And for information about our consulting services, visit 7minsec.com.